Hi, and welcome to the Westworld Morning After Show. I'm Patrick.
I'm Lynn.
I'm Caitlin.
And we're all CNET editors who are big fans of the show Westworld. Today we're going to talk about episode 2 titled Reunion.
Ooh.
Yeah, right.
Reunion of who?
I don't know. But if you have not seen season 1 or season 2, you probably shouldn't be watching us unless you're like our mom or dad. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. But yeah, what are we reunioning here?
A lot. Everything from the past to the present. I guess probably not the future, but we're not 100% sure where we exist on all these timelines, right?
Yeah.
Not really.
I think a lot of the big themes of the episode revolve around Delos and the company and how, we know so little about it up until this episode. We really got our biggest look yet at Logan Delos, his father James Delos,
Papa Delos,
and how William came to edge his way into the company. I think it was really fascinating.
Yeah, and it's also, I feel like sometimes when you have those sequels where you see famously the sequels to The Matrix where you're like, I don't want to see all the behind the scenes stuff of the company. Here I thought it was done really well.
I really like it.
And I was really excited. I'm like, you could just lead the whole episode in this first timeline.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating to me, fascinating to see us start with Dolores looking out the window.
Okay, she was part of the Argos Initiative's pitch they were going to bring to show Logan Delos and prove to him, look where we are in the world of robotics. Look how far we've come. Look what we can do. We can pretty much trick your brain. And we learned that Logan got kind of discombobulated when he realized that everybody in the room with him was a host.
I loved it when he said, I thought this was a private meeting, and then she was Angela was like, yeah, it is. Dun, dun, dun. And then everyone freezes. And then we're like, am I in a flash mob? Is this what's going on? And he's poking and prodding everyone, and he really was just enamored by all these things. And then he saw Angela, and he's like, all right, cool. First thing I'm going to do is fuck it.
Yeah, it's hey, we have this internet. First thing we're doing is sex. You have
Look up
Siri.
porn, yeah.
First thing you do is you have it say bad words.
Yeah.
It's you go straight for the base.
It's pretty typical technology use.
But I liked it in that scene when it was Angela and another couple with another male and female host. So still sticking to the Logan bisexual canon, I feel, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
I one of my favorite little moments in that moment was seeing Clementine at the piano. Not also because they rickrolled us earlier and before the season aired, they released that video of her. But also just the fact that we start seeing some of the people we already know and a lot of hosts that we don't know. And then on top of that, just as we think of we're in the world of tech, we see tons of product announcements stuff. How badass of a demos like that. It's oh, she's not, we're all of them. And
they don't even need one more thing. That is your thing.
Yeah, it's perfect.
You just walk in and have your mind blown. It's cool. Well, I think that is really fascinating because the next one that we see of Delos shortly after is William bringing Papa Delos to Westworld. And we can kind of assume, you and I were talking about it, how this takes place after William and Logan have already been there, right? And now he's trying to show... Been through Westworld.
Had their issues.
Yeah.
Last we saw him was naked on a horse, right?
Because you said he remarks on his son.
Yeah, he was like, oh, my screw up of a son. And we know that if you end up naked on a horse, something probably bad happened to you.
Or it was college, so it's excused.
It was his version of college.
A horrible college, yeah.
No, so we see William is bringing Delos there to be look at the potential that this place has. Look at how it could, not only help people find themselves, but also help us learn about them. That's super creepy.
Also, I like that Papa Delos is Scottish. Maybe that he also represents old money, but also the fact that he just lands a helicopter in the middle of this vulnerable world we saw in the first season and just literally kicks his feet up. And it's kind of creepy that we see now it's I kind of like Logan better than William this episode.
Oh, I've liked Logan starting the last episode of first season.
Why is that?
In that it was revealed that he had more sense and he was more grounded than William, because unlike William, he never got lost into it. And he was a little mean. He was kind of stabbing a lot of the hosts, but he never lost sight of what they actually were, even though it was short-sighted that he didn't know that they could achieve consciousness. But even then, William didn't care about the consciousness either. He was infatuated, but then he just started wanting to own the game as Man in Black. And Logan in the end was the one that had the good head on the shoulders. Don't fall in love with these people. or these machines and stuff like that.
And William, on top of that, is like also gives the Papa Delos the like great piece of advice. Like, look, it's maybe not right now. There's not money in this, but like, people are themselves when they're here. They're free of all the things and like airs they put on. We could get a lot of information about that. And I think
That's what happened to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they'll look at the data set and like, oh, everyone wants to be a murderer and a rapist. So I guess I don't know the value of that kind of data, but
I think there's probably more data.
Yeah.
Well, you also got to think it's like the family side of things. That's probably why I'm guessing this is before all 6 parks are running, or however many parks.
Yeah, we have no idea what the timeline is on how they've created all 6 parks. We know that there's Westworld and Shogun World, but we haven't seen Shogun World yet. And we know there's a park where that Bengal tiger came from still, which will be interesting.
No, just kidding.
Great. I would never visit. I'm good.
Life of
Even if
Pi.
I can't get injured, like, I'm good. I'm out. Don't need to. But I think it's interesting, too, to see that, like, William, when he takes Delos around, you see them all the hosts freeze, but William purposefully directs the action toward Dolores. He purposefully knows exactly where she's going to be.
he really likes her.
There's the can getting picked up, and Delos kind of just throws it on the ground. Like, he's still just zeroing in on her. And it's another moment where we almost have that meeting, and we just pass straight by.
But also, like, that doesn't seem healthy. Like, I don't think I'd want this guy giving me, as a CEO, all this advice if I'd known that my son messed up. Naked horse guy, horrible experience. I'm embarrassed as a father. But then if this guy is like obsessed with a robot and like is making decisions,
Well, he doesn't see that.
that's what I'm saying. Like we see that.
It's another level.
It is
Yeah.
ridiculous. And that being said, I think it's interesting the timing of that, since again, real world, especially with news of Facebook recently, with selling our data, as well as pretty much, I feel like I've had my data stolen from everything from credit cards at this point to emails to social media. So it feels like maybe Delos and Westworld is a little more of a criticism about our modern culture and social media. So we have the second part of our interview with Simon Quarterman, who plays Lee Sizemore, and he actually talks a bit about social media and some of the other relevant themes of Westworld Season 2.
It's all, I think with social media, and it's all about creating a story of how you're to be perceived to the outside world. We're all storytellers, aren't we? We're all, conjuring up our own story and how we'd like to be seen in this world. And so that doesn't differ so much from Westworld. So in a way, we've all got a little like Lee Sizemore within us, haven't we? Because of the complexity of the scripts that we're reading, and you're getting thrown into it, pretty quickly. We're moving fast. You tend to just concentrate pretty heavily on what's going on in your thrust, your through line, your story. So I don't get so heavily bogged down with what's going on. I get a very brief, I get a basic understanding of what's going on, which is great from when I'm watching it, because it's things I didn't even know that are popping up in front of me, and it's wonderful. I think it would be a story of redemption, and a story of someone discovering really who they were, and how they got to that, who knows, and what they had to go through in order to get there. It would be the thing to think about. I came off it about 2 years ago, and it's honestly one of the best things I've ever done. It's amazing how much space it takes up, and you don't even know it until you've kind of got rid of it.
Yeah, Facebook is the craziest. And
Yeah, it sucks you in, and just the next thing you know, you're just scrolling through like everyone's life, and then it's like an hour's past. What am I doing?
Man in Black or Young William?
Man in Black.
Self-driving cars or driving yourself around?
Driving myself around.
Arnold or Bernard?
Ooh, Bernard.
Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Game of Thrones, Sopranos, or The Wire?
Game of Thrones.
I think his points about social media are really valid. We are writers, we enjoy crafting tales and sharing those with people, but the key point, the key difference really in Westworld is that you aren't really crafting anything. You're just trying to live. You're trying to immerse yourself in this world. And what's scary is now thinking that this corporation, this multimedia conglomerate, is watching you and judging all your movements. It's scary.
Like Facebook.
Yeah, I think the parallels are super easy to all the questions Facebook has been facing recently.
But I mean, it gets to the bigger question, like what they explore a little bit, I think more in the first season, is like why you would go there. I mean, the idea of like being in the Wild West or living out these fantasies is one thing, but then within those fantasies, and that's that lovely scene with Papa Delos, is the fact that like that's when you're the most free, is what they're theorizing.
Yes.
On the flip side of that, though, that's also when you're most free. It's also is not how we present ourselves online. We don't present ourselves as who we are.
Yeah, but when we talk about this kind of judgment thing, there is an interesting note that Man in Black says to Lawrence, where he says that Westworld is a place for people to sin in peace, and then that it's that kind of data, he hinted at that data being collected, but he says, but the purpose is not judgment, it's for something else. And that is a hint to something, what you said, more nefarious is happening, and I think that's like an interesting point that he brought up.
So one of the things in season 1 was those intricate timelines, and I was curious to see if they were going to be able to keep that up for season 2, but they certainly have. It's like more intricate and even more disorienting, which I think is maybe even a signal of like kind of letting go, trying to make sense of it, even though lots of people love that, because the characters aren't making sense of that, and I imagine even the actors aren't making sense of it. But then that also brings us back to like, are the things we happening kind of like the cyclical thing, or is it like a predetermined thing? I don't know. What do you think?
It kind of relates to what I think, and I keep thinking about this over and over again, is the philosophy of like eternal return. And it's this ancient Indian philosophy that people are predetermined and just destined to live out these lives over and over and over again. And you're just kind of stuck on a time loop. I like the idea that Westworld is presenting these kind of old philosophies and theories that have been thought about before. I mean, they're packaging it in a really sexy HBO show with a lot of sexy robots, but these things like eternal return have been explored centuries before it was written in this show.
Do you think the show would work if the robots weren't sexy, if they were more like normal looking?
I actually am kind of looking forward to a robot AI movie where there is no moral moral friction about how beautiful this robot is and how much they want to like love it and have sex with it.
Yeah.
Because like Ex Machina was the same thing. It was like, oh, I fell in love with her. Is she really him? I'm like, okay, can we take out that element where you don't fall in love with a robot and they're not really good looking and you just like then think about if they're human or not? But instead of this need to fuck it is when they start thinking like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. Yeah. But
getting back to judgment a little bit, I think it is interesting when you think of who's doing the judging too. Because we talked about some of our favorite moments, and one of yours was when Dolores and Maeve met up again. So talk to me about that.
I super love that scene. I liked that it was called Reunion. We see them meet before, but without any very like real substantial dialogue. This one was great when they were just kind of meeting on the far ends of the field, and there were just these two badass women, and they're like, "What's up?" And it was really good that Maeve kind of rejected Dolores' agenda, because she was like, I'm gathering this army, we need to break free. She's like, I don't want anything to do with Delos, you do whatever you want. And if you're saying that we have a choice as free as you say you are, then you're gonna let me do what I wanna do. And I just like the idea that this kind of robot uprising, not everyone's on board. Everyone has their different agendas. Maeve is looking for her daughter. She doesn't wanna, well, for now, for the time being, kind of show Delos, a piece of their mind or anything. So I like that Dolores and Maeve meet and then kind of diverge.
And I think, that scene in particular, and the other one with Dolores, with how she recruits the army, and just basically if they don't join her, they shoot them all, and she has a tech to fix them.
Yeah.
What? Brilliant!
Yeah, that point is really interesting because Dolores is all talking about how everyone has consciousness, everyone is free now, but she's kind of making their decisions for them. Like, they're not free under her anymore. She's just shooting them and then bringing them back to life and being like, you're following me.
And I'm sure you can speak to this too, but does that mean it's because Dolores knows what's going to happen? Like, in 3 seconds, this water is going to fall from this corner in the room or whatever. Like, I got to put a glass there. Like, she's already knows the future, or is it more dictatorial because it's like, that empowering freedom of breaking away from being a host.
I mean, she definitely knows more than other hosts, so she's kind of like, just get on board, let's do this rebellion. You guys don't know like what I know, so stop doing your little small robot life living things and like robbing banks and eating at tables and barn houses and get on
best
this
thing.
revolution right now.
But because we don't know what she knows either, it's causing a lot of questions. Does she think that her way is the only way, or does she think it's the only way because she's done it before? Or does she think that because she is the only one with this special Delos knowledge, her like intricate meetings with William, we've only seen 1.5, let's say, in this episode. Does she actually possess that knowledge that we're just kind of, well, you're kind of just acting like a dictator. Maybe tone it down a little.
It'd be nice if she gave Teddy a choice. If she's like, so knowing what you know, do you want to follow me or don't? And it'd be really cool if he was like, nah, I don't really want to.
But she didn't.
I know,
She
yeah.
had no choice.
He just pushes him into the
And
world.
he's so frightened by her, I think. I think he is so like, dude, let's just run off into the sunset. Like,
All he
let's
wanted
go.
was, like, a
Like
little
last
cabin.
episode. Yep.
Those are the moments where it felt most like a game to me too, because you have like Maeve following her agenda. It's like she's moving across the game board. You have Dolores gathering her army. You have Man in Black trying to gather his army. And it really is the first time in the show where it really felt like a game versus just saying it was a game. Because you're like, oh, wow. And this is like, again, I really have this idea that Ford is pushing all these on purpose for a greater point to see what happens. I also feel like he's playing, even if he's not there, he's playing through the robots against William, which is one of my favorite scenes, which is the Man in Black meeting one of my favorite actors, Giancarlo Esposito, playing El Lazo. But that scene when he meets El Lazo and is trying to not only convince him, but also his men to join him and that they have to. And then there's that, he grabs El Lazo and basically is like, hey, if you don't join me or your army, you can command your army too.
Yeah.
And they all turn the gun, point at their head, and kill themselves. And he has this great line, it's like, hey, this game is designed for you, but you have to play it. Like, and you have to play it alone. Which I think is interesting because it's like, because who else is playing the game alone?
All of them.
All of them, really. If you think of Maeve is, Dolores has her like pieces to gather, but she's really playing it alone. So it's Dolores, William, and Maeve.
I also really like that scene because it shows that the Man in Black isn't as good at this game, at living in Westworld, as he was in season 1. It's very humbling. Like, you see him struggle, he's getting actually hurt, and he
loves it though.
Yeah.
He's super
he's
down
the
to
only
get
one
her.
who's like
Yeah.
he's the only one having a lot of
loves
fun.
it.
But I
Yeah.
want
He
him
knows
to
where
be,
he knows where the first aid kits are.
and I want him to be a little bit more humbled. I just kind of like seeing him struggling because I feel like it kind of sucks that the only dude that's having a good time in this terrible world of suffering is the Man in Black. So I want him to kind of get a taste of his own medicine.
What was your favorite moment?
I actually think my favorite moment was kind of back to the Delos timelines. It's the third one we see. And discrepancy, whether it's like a retirement party or a coronation between Papa Delos and William. And we first look and see Dolores playing on the piano, just where Clementine was previously. And this little girl comes up to her and she's like, "You're pretty." "Oh, thank you. What's your name?" And the girl runs off. And the little girl runs to Juliet, who, if you'll remember, was on the picture that set Abernathy off and is William's ex-wife. Wife?
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 He's mentioned that she died.
Right. Okay, so he's William's wife. And then William steps into the frame, young William. And we go, ooh. And he and Dolores make eye contact. And there's this moment when, I don't know if it's just projection or wishful thinking, but it feels like you can see the flicker of recognition in her face. And you're both like, oh, and he kind of feels it. And he walks toward her like, oh, I should talk to her. And Delos just cuts him off. Just stops. And he's like, stop playing, girly. Oh, okay. Like, the moment that William and Dolores, they keep missing their moment to meet.
Is that a good moment though, or is it like a I know what you're going to become moment?
I don't think it's a I know what you're going to become. I think it's a really sad moment because William, for all of his pleading to the opposite, I think he truly fell in love with Dolores. I think he truly fell for this AI. And it's hard for him to admit. He still is really upset about the fact that he showed the most vulnerable piece of himself to a host.
Didn't he admit it though later when he has her alone in the room and he's like, I fell in love with you and now I resent you?
But that's later, right? So later he's sitting with her and he's like, you're a reflection. You're just exactly what I want you to be. That's all. I didn't fall in love with you. I fell in love with the best parts of me.
Or the worst parts.
Well, and it's a very soap opera. I mean, because we see
I guess
that.
he couldn't say anything also because his wife was there. It's like, keep it cool,
Exactly,
man.
exactly.
Your ex is in the room. You
Yeah.
gotta look cool.
And then while all that's happening, we have Logan, who's and he has this crazy little drug thing. What is that thing?
My favorite Logan with the shark eyes.
The shark
He
eyes.
has very big pupils or something. It's very dilated. I
Well,
don't know.
he's high,
He's
so
he has that little weird like.
He has a
domino
very
thing.
organized shot of
Injection
meth,
sites,
of whatever, or heroin or whatever.
It might, maybe it's just like doing a tuberculosis test. It kind of looks like that.
It's
too.
an allergy test, really.
It's just an allergy.
He's all like, oh, now I can't eat
Gluten. Oh.
pine nuts. This is what you made me become.
But he has this great line. He says to so Dolores is looking out at the city and the stars are on the ground. Should we go back to that line?
Yeah.
And he's doing his little domino heroin TB test thing, and he has this line: "That darling is a sound of fools fiddling while the fucking species starts to burn." And I think that line is so relevant for the series, but also it's a lot of the things that we deal with in life too. When we get something new and exciting, we get so excited about it. Not to go back to Facebook or social media, but I think of like the internet and how there's all this promise, but we get so sidetracked with the belittling things, the bullying things, the sexual things of it, that we lose track of its true potential. And I feel like in that case, he's kind of declared Westworld or Delos, whatever the 6 worlds are going to make, is doomed from the start. And it's such a brilliant line. And I wonder if that's also what she's registering in that moment of saying, like, we don't know what the data they're collecting, but we know it's nefarious. And her remembering that this is what's going to burn humans down is this creation. What do you
she
guys
later
think?
goes on to say that she holds the key and she knows the difference and she knows like where the weapon is, right? And we think maybe it was something that William was showing her in that terraformed area, or maybe it was something he buried there.
It could also be Arnold just showing the real world. So
Right.
that last line that she was talking about, we don't know for sure what old friend who was foolish showed her.
Exactly. What are our thoughts for the next episode or moving forward? What are your hopes for, Lynn?
I love this episode. I think it was much stronger than the premiere even, just because I like what timelines it's filling in, especially whatever happened to Logan and the naked horse riding. But I really want to see more of Dolores in this real world, and I really want to see more of her gathering this army and basically kind of convincing people she's kind of God. She's like killing them and bringing back to life, and she's like, yeah, you either follow me or you don't. And if I saw that in real life, if I saw someone like kill me and then bring me back, I would go into battle with her for sure.
What do you think? What are your hopes for the next episodes?
I liked that 1 and 2 of this season have felt like two sides of the same coin. Like we could have watched them back to back and we would have, felt like a few more questions were answered. They kind of feel like they sandwich together very well. And so I hope then the next ones we get kind of more contained stories, like more episode by episode theories and questions, kind of less I need the next week to come right now, and more that was a great episode. I want to talk about that.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about this episode. I mean, I liked the first episode of the season, but man, the second one, it just expanded the world in such a smart way and in such like ethereal way for me. But then I think about, again, we got Man in Black's army, we have Dolores' army, we got Maeve doing her thing, but then we know, at least he says, if it's fact, that Bernard killed all the robots. So
Did he?
yeah, exactly, right? Did he or didn't? And so where all this is going is going to be either really amazing, and then if they can keep that up, I'm excited for that. I just hope it doesn't turn to like a letdown.
I mean, I trust Nolan, I trust Lisa Joy, but I've witnessed shows where they just write themselves in a corner.
Yeah.
And I really hope that they respect the audience and know that we're watching and that everything kind of either is good and interesting and does every character kind of justice. And I don't want it to be like, it was all a dream.
The corners they wrote themselves in the first season, I gotta say, I'm really happy the way they got out of it and are launching into this bigger world. For every episode, Caitlin makes a special cocktail, and for this episode, the reunion, she made a mezcal mule. So let's go to Caitlin's cocktail corner and see how she did it.
For episode 2 reunion, we are making a mezcal mule with, for a little bit of added spice, the Ancho Reyes Verde, made from poblano chili peppers, just to give it a little bit of a bite. And we'll use Del Maguey Vida Mezcal. So, fill your shaker with some ice, and then we're going to use equal parts mezcal and Ancho Reyes. We're going to put a squeeze of lime in here. We're gonna shake it up. Then, when that's too cold to handle, put your strainer in, pour that guy out, top with ginger beer.
Thank you, Caitlin, for the drinks. Of course. So that's our recap for the second episode reunion. Join us next week as we go over the third episode.
And let's give a little toast to actor Giancarlo Esposito, better known as El Lazo.
R.I.P.
Salud.
Fireworks show what choose to work fast as a plastic cast and a half.